totally felt like rebelling, totally. I never thought I would be a lawyer growing up. I did know that I loved being with people and talking with people, but I didn't think that was going to take me into a career in law. But my parents were quite clever and they said, just try it, just try it.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Bar podcast. I'm your host, Denisa Tova, and today I have the privilege and a pleasure of sitting down with Alexandra Tribe, who is a renowned specialist international divorce and family lawyer. She's also a co-founder of Expatriate Law and has built an impressive career advising expatriate families around the world. And from her unique family background to her insights on international law, Alexandra's story is definitely one of resilience, ambition, and growth, and I cannot wait to dive in. Alexandra, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Denisa. That's such a kind introduction.
I am so thrilled to really get to know you. And yes, I have read a little bit about your background and your bio. And what's really fascinating, and I really wanted to ask, so growing up in a family of lawyers, did you ever imagine a different path for yourself or even felt like sort of rebelling against the idea
I
of following the same path?
totally felt like rebelling, totally. I never thought I would be a lawyer growing up. I did know that I loved being with people and talking with people, but I didn't think that was going to take me into a career in law. But my parents were quite clever and they said, just try it, just try it. And I was encouraged to do the first year of law school. And then after that, everything else followed. But I feel very, very glad and blessed to be in this career, which I really enjoy.
So tell me about, you really truly do have a fascinating background. Tell me, where did you grow up? Where are you based out of now? You really do have an international experience that's incredible.
Well, I grew up in London and my career took me to the Middle East when shortly after qualifying as a solicitor. My husband and I went as a newly married couple, and I began to advise international families, mainly expatriate British families living in Dubai and other parts of the Middle East. So I lived there, and my husband and I started our young family. And we had a really happy 10 years in Dubai and then moved back to England. And now I split my time between London, in Chelsea, where our office is, and our home on the south coast in England.
What a journey. So you spent some time in Middle East and then also Kenya, right?
Not Kenya. I do advise a lot of clients from that region, but no, my stint overseas was just in Dubai, and we travelled extensively in that region. But it was a really amazing 10 years, something so different. And I look back and think those were very, very happy times. It was a wonderful place to live.
And you work with your father still?
Yes, yes. So when I worked in London, I worked for my father's law firm, and that's where I began my legal career. And I have to say, my parents were not very happy when I announced that I was going to move with my husband to Dubai. They really tried to discourage me. But I was insistent and quite stubborn. And several years later, being in Dubai, I was approached by a law firm in London asking me to set up a branch office in Dubai for them. That coincided with me falling pregnant with my son, my eldest child. And the firm in London got cold feet. They said, "Oh, how are you going to run our office if you have a young baby?" I said, "Are you ridiculous? Of course I will. I'll have some time off with the baby, but then I'll be back to work full time." But they were a bit anxious about that. And at that time, my father said, Alexandra, if you can run a law firm for this London company, then you can certainly run your own. I'll come out to Dubai and I will help you set up the law firm, and I'll take over your cases when the baby arrives, and we'll do it together. And that's what happened. That was the beginning of Expatriate Law, which it is now 14 years ago, coincides with my son turning 14. And that's how it all happened. And I would have never dreamed it would have turned into the firm that it is today. But I really owe it all to my father for giving me the confidence and the idea and all the help for us to get the business working together.
That's really amazing. The transformation and the paradigm shift from being concerned about you traveling to Middle East to, I think I can do it. I can come out there and support you and co-found the law firm. Yeah, that is like a true testament to parent really instilling confidence and believing in their child.
Mm.
What what did you have to grow through working with your father?
He is an amazing individual. So I just feel that there was nothing tricky, no tricky issues for us to go through. We've always found it easy to agree on things. We have naturally have the same approach. I have learned so much from him, his calm and measured approach, while still being a really fierce litigator. So we were a good pair, a really good pair. And it's been really amazing building the law firm with him. We have some similar attributes, but a lot of different attributes, which means that we've been able to work well in harmony, which has been brilliant. There's some things that I love, socializing and networking and meeting people, and he shies away from that side of things. And there's things that I don't necessarily like about running a business that he really loves. So we're a good match.
That sounds like a perfect balance. I have recently learned about it was an entrepreneur by the name of can't remember his last name, Daniel, who talked about sort of this drip matrix. And when you kind of look at your daily activity, recognize them rather than looking at where you spend your time is going by energy. And you have activities that sort of zap your energy, but they may, they may be a income producing activity. And then so just sort of realizing what your strengths are, what's rejuvenating, re-energizing. And for some people like introverts, the networking, that can be energy zapping. So being
Yeah.
able to, but it's a strength to you. So that is wonderful that you found that balance. On that note, as you were hiring people to expand your law firm, what are some of the qualities that you would look for in someone in terms of skill, attitude?
We were lucky with the firm. We didn't really have an intention to grow it. We thought it would just be the two of us.
Right.
But our cases developed so quickly that we quite soon realized that we were struggling to manage. And by complete coincidence, in the early days, I remember being phoned by the head of a really significant law firm in London saying, Alexandra, one of my colleagues, she is an amazing lawyer and her husband is being posted to Dubai for his job. You must take her on. I'm not going to allow you not to take her on. And I said, well, it couldn't have fallen at a better time. So we immediately hired her, and several other lawyers joined us by personal recommendation like that. And they all brought many different attributes. Some were particularly strong in certain areas of family law. Some had other skills, such as extra languages, or were trained mediators. So our firm has grown with lots of different types of people. I think we're a very cohesive team, though. We have the same mentality, and respect and friendliness towards each other. So I hope everyone feels the same, that it's a really enjoyable place to work.
Well, it starts from the top, and with sort of your frame of mind, and sounds like you are really striving for also for fulfillment. And we had
Mm,
a little bit of a conversation before we started, how, treating each other with respect, regardless if you are on the opposite sides of a case,
mm,
is really important. Um, how do you, how, a huge part of what you do is managing emotions. That's
mm.
part of being a lawyer. How do you deal with that?
How do I deal with that?
If you have
Taking
to,
on the emotions from a client.
yes, yes.
It is difficult, and I think it's something that I've learned without realizing. But I try not to let issues trouble me, from coming from a client's case. It's harder with children issues when you're acting for a parent whose child has been abducted by the other parent, or a client who wants to relocate overseas with their child. So you know the outcome of the case is going to really change that person's life, and not only the parent, but also the child's life. It feels a tremendous responsibility. And there's no denying that those kind of cases add more of an emotional toll on you than the financial remedy cases. Um, but having a mixed selection of family law cases ensures that you keep a sensible head, and you don't let issues become too emotionally demanding.
Hmm. Do you ever find yourself bringing it home, or do you have a sort of rule for yourself where you leave it outside?
I try not to share things with my family, obviously for confidentiality, but also because out of respect for the clients that I'm advising, their the situations may be so unusual and so extraordinary that you think, I just can't believe an individual has got themselves into this mess. But those issues are very serious to them, and the issues are taking up a lot of emotional space for that person, and that deserves respect. So I try not to take things home, but certainly I find great solace in being able to share issues with my work colleagues, and I try to do the same with them. We all have clients who are very demanding, and some are more demanding than others. And in the height of your emotion, when you're feeling most raw, their behavior may be different to how they are normally. And us taking those kind of emotions on board every single day, it can really help to share that with other lawyers in our team and discuss cases, and that helps you keep a level head, I think.
Yeah, they act from their shadow side. It's
Mm,
usually a fear of the unknown.
mm,
And what a perspective, to just respect that, and as opposed to, it's almost like sensationalizing it, because as you
mm,
said, some circumstances are so almost just unique. They're unique,
yeah.
and it's theirs. Well, speaking of just sort of letting that go and resetting, what brings you joy and balance outside of work?
I, of course, love spending time with my two children. They're growing up now, and I feel that time is becoming increasingly precious. I There is an amazing lawyer, who is a wonderful family barrister in London. And when my children were very young, I think my son was only a year old, I flew from Dubai to France for an international family law conference. And I talked to her and she said, "Oh, but your baby is only 8 months old, Alexandra." And I said, "Oh, it's only a few days, I'll be back." She said, "Can I give you some advice? My children are now grown up, and I look back and I wish I had made time for them. There is so much time for your career, and you will do brilliantly in your career, but make time for your children before the time passes by." And that wonderful lawyer, her voice has been in my head since then. So I have tried to build a brilliant career, I hope, but at the same time be there for my children. And it's not an easy task, but certainly they give me great joy. My family gives me great joy, seeing my parents too and my siblings. I think that's what I enjoy most outside work.
Is there a favorite activity that you all enjoy, let's say on the weekends when you are together?
I think I'm a little left out in my family because my husband and children are certainly more sporty than I am. They love to sail and play hockey and are brilliant skiers, and of which I am none. But I do enjoy being outdoors, living in the countryside by the sea. We love hiking together, and we have a boat, and when the weather is nice, we get out on the boat, and that for me is complete happiness. Fresh air and being with the family is really wonderful.
Oh, I can just transport myself there right now. Sounds very, very calming. Going back to your profession, with the world essentially becoming more interconnected, so to speak, do you see where do you see cross-border divorces heading?
I think we will have an increasing number of cross-border divorces. The people are so mobile these days, and within the expatriate community, you may find a family who are posted to London for a few years, and then on to Singapore, and on to Dubai. And certainly in England, us who are all facing increased taxes, these kind of issues really make people think, "Oh, I think we should do a stint overseas." And it's become so easy to do a stint overseas. And I have noticed that the number of international cases have increased significantly. Our firm is based in Sloane Square in London, and it's an area that is really full of international families. There are a lot of families from the US and from France and from Switzerland, and no doubt that their lives here are fairly transient. They'll be here for a stint and then move home or move elsewhere. But it's really great to be able to help these families decipher the quite confusing family law issues concerning relocation children, but also cross-border divorce and things like, well, actually, my prenuptial agreement was drafted in South Africa when we lived there. Is it going to be recognised in England if we divorce? All these kind of issues are becoming much more prevalent. And I've noticed in the English courts, the number of reported cases that set binding legal precedents, those cases in terms of international family law are increasing because the cases are becoming more frequent in the courts. So it's a really interesting area of law to work in.
And you couple that with advancement in technology and AI, essentially, it seems like we are moving so rapidly in a completely different world. Speaking of, how is your law firm using this new technology?
We've been using it for a really long time. I know it's become very common during lockdown, but we used video conferencing technology really from the first day that our firm was set up, because we would be advising British families living overseas. And so those families would want to have a meeting with our barrister or to attend court remotely, and have settlement meetings or mediation remotely with some of the team in London, some of the team locally where they were based. And so for a long time, we've been using video link technology, but thankfully, it's a million times better now than it was. And it's brilliant. We can have whole court hearings where there are separate rooms for you to be with your client, and then you can swap rooms so the advocates can meet in a different room for negotiations and then step into the same courtroom with the judge. I mean, we would have never dreamed that would have been possible 10 years ago. So I think this really, really helps the field of international family law. It saves costs all round. And being able to see people face to face, it's not quite as good as in person, but it's brilliant. Meeting with foreign lawyers, you know, if we're co-working with a US lawyer or a French lawyer, we can be all together on Zoom and things get done much more effectively.
That's interesting that you said that. I actually I practiced in Denver, Colorado before I moved to New York, and it was about 10 years prior to coming, so about 2012. And at that time, I was also doing like a financial mediation, and I said to myself, well, why go into why go into physical space? Because I've noticed that two people trying to resolve issues were much more comfortable sitting in their own environment. So I forget what it was, not Zoom, maybe it was a GoToMeeting, I cannot remember, but I started the concept of sort of a video mediation where and sometimes they couldn't see each other.
Yeah.
Sometimes they could just hear each other, and it was amazing because they would watch me sort of model financial scenarios, and so it's like they're sitting in the comfort of their home and they're not distracted by all the other stuff. So
And
that's great.
also, if the atmosphere, if it becomes too much of a conflict and they're feeling fear, they can just press stop. And it's done. So my colleague does quite a few mediations via video link because she does international mediations as well. But it's great. I think people in that kind of arena feel much safer being online and being more in control of what they want to listen to and don't have to listen to.
Yeah, it sounds like you're very nimble and sort of are able, instead of how would I put it, is trying to jam sort of a square peg in a round hole. It's like this, it has been done this way for so many years. There was this sort of rigidity, is you have adapted a long time ago and are so well, your firm is so well positioned to what is, what is happening, this sort of this new normal, if you will. So before we wrap up, I'm curious, what would be your advice to incoming lawyers?
To incoming lawyers, I would say that there is an area of law that suits every different person and personality. And to really start exploring different fields and undertaking work experience in many, many different firms so that you find an area of law that really suits you. I was very lucky to have found family law and found it a perfect fit for my personality. But there are so many wonderful areas of law that will lead to really fulfilling careers. So try many different fields before you settle.
That is a great advice. So they don't feel this pressure. I must figure out exactly what I want to do and stay there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Wow. Well, it's been such a pleasure getting to know you, and thank you so much for sharing your story.
Oh, thank you, Denise. So I feel I wanted to ask you a million questions, but I know I shouldn't. But we must find another time for that.
We absolutely will. And again, thank you so much. And for our viewers and listeners, to find out more about Alexandra Tribe and how to get in touch with her, check her bio below, website, also in our show notes. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button to stay up to date with all the latest episodes on Beyond the Bar podcast. And until next time, stay curious and stay inspired.